So yeah, obviously another great opportunity on Saturday to play, arguably the best team in college basketball, alongside Michigan and Purdue at this point. They play four freshmen, four returners, tremendous size. They are the eighth tallest team in the country, and you look at some of our most recent opponents in Oregon and Michigan, and they had tremendous size as well. So, it's something that presents some problems, but also some opportunities to expose, some of their weaknesses. One of the best rebounding teams in the country. They're way better not way better, but they score a lot more from two than they do from three. So they really rely on the two, use their size, to their advantage. They're one of four teams in the country that's top 12 in offensive and defensive efficiency. With Duke, Michigan, and Iowa State, they're 64-6 at home. Under Coach Lloyd, and they have five players that are scoring in double figures. So it's a team that presents a lot of challenges on both ends of the floor. They run good sets, good offenses. Defensively they kind of mix things up, but they try and use their size to obviously bother you. Jaden Bradley, a guy that played at Alabama a couple years ago, a kid that we recruited, out of high school, is tremendous. Just does so many little things that impact winning. Can score the ball when he needs to, but if he doesn't, he'll affect the game facilitating it. But then also he defends at such a high level. So, really good team. On a quick turnaround, a quick prep. We're gonna have our hands full, but I know our guys are obviously, excited about the opportunity to go out there and play our first true road game.
So I want to ask you about your front court, like the ceiling. These guys do. I saw Philip do it a few times last night. Obviously, Sway's done it a bunch. Murph's done it a bunch. Like how big is that, and how helping you guys out as being one of the better 2-point teams in the country? Just their ability to kind of create those lanes. I feel like that's just kind of an underrated part of y'all's offense this year.
Yeah, we got pretty good depth up front, and they're guys that can all play different positions. They could play, 4 and 5, and in some of their cases they could play 3, 4, and 5. So it gives us a lot of different, options, and they all have different strengths. But they're all talented, which is also unique. They can all pass the basketball. They can all move their feet defensively. The biggest thing is we're just not that tall. So that can obviously affect you in a game like this. So we really got to step up and be physical, keeping those guys off the offensive glass, and obviously just doing a good job of crashing the glass on our end of the floor. So they've done a good job, and they're obviously been going against some really, really good front lines, which has been really good for us, as the year's gone on, with Houston and Oregon and Michigan, St. John's, NC State, all of them had pretty good front lines. So I think it's been good for our guys to continue to grow and learn, and the biggest thing is just trying to keep those guys healthy.
Mentioned earlier this week about some guys being sick and kind of recovering going into the game last night. And it's still a couple of days before Arizona, but where do you feel like the team's at health-wise?
Yeah, I got to talk to Clark before the game. I think, last night, Murph, I think, was still a little bothered. He wasn't himself. I don't think he wasn't at 100%, which you kind of see. But that's why, you got to rely on your depth. And Philip comes in there and he's plus 22 and only scores 2 points. So that's just that's such a compliment to him in just his effectiveness as a basketball player, being able to impact the game in other ways than his scoring. And, proud of him for that. Simon had been sick all week. He wasn't able to practice at all going into the game, so he wasn't able to play last night. Keyshawn Hall is, still battling that foot injury, after having to play heavy minutes last night. I'm sure that thing's bothering him a little bit today. So just some lingering things that, everyone's going through right now. It's no excuse. It's like, that's just part of basketball, right? And that's why you got to rely on your bench. And that's why it's the next guy up. And we've been able to, handle that all year. But, it'll be nice after this one to have a week to kind of get ready for the next one, because we need time to kind of, get healthy, heal, not be sick. But our guys have done a good job of picking up the slack where someone's been left off. So we're to answer your question, we're still trying to get back right.
Stephen, their front court is huge. Obviously, Koa Pete's been a guy who's been awesome from the very beginning. Like, what are going to be the keys for you guys to try to hang in there? Y'all played some really talented front courts this year. Just what are some stuff y'all can carry over when you go up against one of the best front courts in the country?
Yeah, I mean we're still trying to figure that out because obviously last night we get done with our game at 11. And, we get together as a staff this morning, and somehow it's already 2 o'clock, and we have practice in 30 minutes. So, for us, like at this point, it's about just trying to keep them as fresh as we possibly can because we got to play with unbelievable effort and energy to be able to match their size and physicality. We got to, really try and run in transition because I think, if you think about bigger teams, they're not as quick getting back in transition, so we got to do a good job pushing the ball at the floor, being aggressive. They drop in ball screen, so we got to do a good job attacking that, and just kind of expose some of the things that they struggle in. The problem is they don't struggle in much. If you look at their numbers, like they're really good everywhere. So it's gonna be hard to expose their weaknesses because they don't have a ton of them. They don't have a ton of holes. That's why they're such a good team, and that's why they've won all their games so far this year. So just trust in what we do. Can't get rattled. It's going to be a great environment, our first road game. So got to do a better job. Biggest thing, we got to execute better offensively, right? We got to be more crisp in what we do. Probably got to simplify what we do since we'll be on the road. And then whatever we do defensively, we just got to play with unbelievable effort and energy and just fly around.
Stephen, this schedule that Bruce left you, are you sure that he wants you to succeed here?
Well, yeah. He made the schedule thinking that he was going to be the one that was going to have to suffer through it, so I can't completely blame him. And obviously, you don't know that you're going to play a Hall of Fame coach in Rick Pitino and his 15th ranked Johnny's in the third game of Players Era. And, Arizona was, at the time, like we thought they were going to be good, but not this good, right? NC State, you thought they were going to be good, but they're as good as we thought they were going to be. They're really good. So I mean, it worked really well for us last year. People don't want to say this, but we probably had the number 1 overall seed locked up at the end of February, and that was just based on the body of work that we had put, going into postseason. While the SEC is really good. Probably not as good as it was last year, but if you look at the teams that we're going to have played in non-conference, we're not going to see anyone that's any better than any of the teams that we'll have faced up to this point. So it's just really it's a great litmus test for our guys, and just it helps them prepare to get ready for what we're going to see every single night in conference play. So while it keeps you up at night, and obviously you really just can't ever relax, it's great for our guys to be able to go up such great teams.
As you set schedules for the future, do you want to keep having a non-conference schedule like this going forward?
Yeah, if you look at what we've had so far, so you're going to have 7 probably Q1, Q2 games. I really hope Oregon figures it out because that being a quad 3 game really hurts us right now. That we thought that'd be a Q1, Q2 pretty easily, and it's not. It's not even close to a Q2 right now, so we need them to really step it up. So I would say like your sweet spot is like 6 or 7 Q1, Q2s in non-conference, and that's a lot. Most teams are shooting for 4 or 5. But, if you don't play these games, you don't allow yourself the opportunity to build your resume. And, for us to have beaten NC State, St. John's, and Oregon already, I think that has put our resume in a decent spot up to this point. So, you have to play these games to allow yourself to build your resume and to allow yourself to be prepared to play other quality teams in conference play, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, I know the turnovers were pissing you off, particularly in the first half last night. 20 for you guys is an astronomical number. Is it just a matter – you guys were a lot better in the second half. Is it a matter of you or the other guys saying, think more about your passing? What is it that leads to turnovers like that? I know they're good. NC State's good at steals, but you guys didn't seem like in the right rhythm passing the ball around last night.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the first one to wear it when like we're doing something wrong. Our guys just did a really poor job of making the simple pass, and they'll be the first ones to admit that too. It's not me throwing them under the bus. Like Keyshawn Hall was like, I made a lot of bad passes tonight. You know what I mean? Like uncharacteristic, just tough passes. And part of that is NC State and their defense and some of the adjustments they made. But at the same time, like, if they're not going to switch and they're going to impact, then all we talked about was just getting off it to the next man ahead, right? The simple pass. And too many times when we got hit in a ball screen, we tried to make the really, really difficult pass to the 5-man on the roll when there was 2 or 3 guys surrounding him. So it was just more us just making silly plays and silly passes. And we just told our guys, like, when you get hit, right, get off it quick and get it to the next guy. Or if they switch, get it to the wing and enter it to the post from the wing. Stop trying to enter the ball into the post from the top of the floor, because that's when we turn the ball over probably 12 or 13 times. So I just think our guys were just trying to make the tough play instead of making the easy play. And it's great now because we have film on it. We can show them, like, look, this is what it looks like when we try and make the dime instead of just throwing a strike. So it's good to be able to learn from that and a win, because 20 turnovers, they shoot the ball 20 more times than we do, right? If it's not for KO and Key, like, we don't win that game. So we got to learn from it and we got to execute better. And our starting lineup's got to be better. Our first 5 minutes of both halves, our plus minus is in the negative with our starting lineup, and there's got to be some accountability there, and our guys got to be better when we start games.
First true road game and traveling cross country on kind of a short turnaround. What kind of extra challenge does that bring? And then how do you prepare a lot of these guys who haven't played in an environment like this, against a team this strong?
Yeah, I talked about this in players era. Short preps sometimes are a good thing because you're not overthinking it and you're just giving them a couple things to kind of play by and just play by our rules and fly around. Obviously we had some guys play some really heavy minutes last night, and Arizona hasn't played since Saturday, so they'll have had time to rest and they'll really be prepared for this game. But quick turnarounds are could be a good and a bad thing. The cross country travel adds a little wrinkle into it, but that's just part of it. We just got to, obviously, I know our guys are gonna be excited. Coach Lloyd has done such a phenomenal job there. In his 5th year, he's averaging like 28 wins a year and been to a couple Sweet 16s. So, man, he's done a hell of a job there, and have a ton of respect for him and his program. So I know our guys are excited about it. It's going to be really good for us to kind of see how we handle, how we handle it. We've played a bunch of neutral games and then a bunch of home games. So first true road game against a beyond quality opponent will really, help us see where we're at. We're going to play some tough road games in the SEC too. So it's good that we're going to get one under our belt before conference play starts.
Steve, you talked about, I guess a week or so ago, you talked about the guards kind of competing for minutes, like sort of opening that up. Where do you sort of see those guys behind Tahad? How has that gone maybe the last week or so, 2 weeks, evaluating guard play, either behind Tahad or at the 2?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's been an interesting string of events. So, Abdul has got a lower back injury, and he was sick in Vegas. So that's set him back. Simon got sick this past week. Blake's had some good and some bad rotations when he's been in there. I think I want to give Caden Magwood a ton of love right now, because last night I lit into him worse than anyone I've had to light into all year, and he knew exactly why. And I had like 10 people reach out to me that were at the game and were watching our bench and said, they read his lips. He said, "That's my bad. That's on me." Like, as a freshman, like, are you kidding? Like, that's unbelievable. So I want to reward Caden for, one, like, just being consistent, being patient, and I have confidence in Caden. So, I think Caden and Simon are 2 guys that we're going to look at, at those backup 2 minutes, and, maybe sliding Tahad over some 2 so Caden can play some more 1. But we're still kind of, trying to figure out what that looks like, because we've had a bunch of those guys kind of in and out of the rotation. So still working through some things, because we need another guard, like kind of similar to our bigs. Like we've had some step up from our bench bigs, with Phillip and Sebastian really just bringing an unbelievable spark to the lineup. I'm looking for Caden and Simon to be able to continue to do the same. So we talked about on their shooters, so like McNeil specifically. Anytime you're guarding that guy, you have to stay into a stance. And NC State, like we showed it on film, there's so many times when teams get caught standing up or they ball watch, and the second that happens, McNeil starts moving, and he comes off a stagger or a pin down, and he hits a shot. It happened 2 straight times. Now, they were both tough, contested shots, and I feel, I don't feel bad, because that's just part of coaching. But he missed those shots a few times against other guys, and I didn't have to get after him as much. So Caden knew exactly what happened. He was fully accountable for it. And, I know he's just so coachable that he's just going to continue to get better and grow and learn defensively, so he can find more ways to be out there longer.
Going back to KO and Key, both of those guys played really well last night. They've also played Arizona, and both of them had pretty good games. I know it's a different team. Some of those guys are back, but how important is it that you've got guys that, especially in Key's case, like went on the road to Arizona and played pretty well last season and is kind of familiar with showing up against a team like this?
Yeah, I think having a couple guys that have experience in those types of environments is always important, because, if guys that have not played in those types of environments and situations look over and see we have a couple guys playing with tremendous confidence, whether it's Keyshawn or KO or Tahad, because they've been in those moments, in those environments. I think that'll help them garner the confidence to be able to step up in those moments. So it's great to obviously always have somebody that's been in those environments before, and hopefully it kind of rubs off to the rest of those guys, and they can obviously, like we talked about, they can speak to what it's like, playing there or playing in a Big 12, environment on the road. So it's going to take a ton of step up. It's going to take a ton of special to be able to, compete against one of the best teams in college basketball.